These are the last few seconds of a life. 75-year-old grandfather Maurice Roy is standing on a street corner. He's pushed the walk button and is waiting to cross. Tamisha Howard was just behind him, pumping gas into her car.
I noticed the pedestrian standing at the corner, at the light, waiting on the light to change. I put my head down for a sec to make sure the gas was pumping. I heard a loud thump.
That thump was the impact of a 6-ton budget rental truck slamming into Maurice when he was in the second lane of traffic.
His body was being thrown around the truck, so I started screaming, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, there's somebody being hit. You need to stop your truck." He didn't stop. He kept going. As I was screaming, he lost his balance and his bag flew in the air and he lost his balance and fell. And that's when his body got caught under the truck and the truck started rolling over his body. I'm still screaming, "Stop, stop, stop," as loud as I can. Everybody was coming out of everywhere. And he didn't stop. The truck was rolling over his body, dragging his body, and the truck just finally stopped because his body wouldn't allow the truck to go anymore.
Surveillance cameras show the truck as the tires roll over his body, crushing him.
Well, a family wants answers tonight regarding the tragic death of a loved one killed while crossing the street in an East Bay city.
This is video in San Leandro from last Friday from our helicopter partnership with ABC 7 News. This is the intersection of Washington Avenue and Monterey Boulevard, where the driver of this rental truck fatally struck 75-year-old Maurice Roy while he was in the crosswalk.
I think the driver was at fault because the pedestrian always has the right of way. And he was at fault because he was supposed to look before he made any turns. He was supposed to look. He had enough time to react. And even on the impact, when you hear a boom, you stop the car, you stop the truck, you stop anything. When you hear a first boom, the pedestrian stayed at the light and waited until it turned green. And then he proceeded into the street when he seen that it was safe. He didn't walk on the red light, he didn't run into the street, and he walked at a normal pace.
Rescue workers lifted the truck and tried to save Maurice Roy, but it was too late. He died in that street. Newspapers would later report the name, Maurice Roy, but not his story. One of a generous neighbor, loyal friend, loving father, and once upon a time, a world heavyweight boxing contender. Craighead, Jamaica in the early 1940s. It's where Maurice Roy's story begins.
My brother and I were very, very close. We were the last siblings. The older ones, our brothers and sisters before us, are so much older than we are. We were the two last one at home with my mother. So needless to say, we were very, very close.
So close that when Madge, as he called her, moved to London to study nursing, he moved as well.
We were very, very close, and I was glad that he followed me to England because I got my brother back, you know. It was really good.
Maurice began working on cars, a passion he would pursue throughout his life. He found love with Ruby Grandison. They married in 1961 and had 3 daughters, Carol, Annette, and Marcia. They were daddy's girls, and they have happy memories.
I remember when I was younger and he had a garage in England, I used to go to the garage all the time after school. And I was about 11, and I used to go there every day after school, and he would teach me how to work on cars with him because he was a bodyman. He would let me hold the screws and the screwdriver and stuff like that. So, you know, like I said, I always said I was his favorite.
Maurice prepaid the tab at a local candy store so his girls could go anytime and help themselves.
I'll take this, and this, and I'll give my friend this and that. And he basically kept an account, paid account, so we could pick whatever sweets we like.
Even though my dad had divorced my mother when I was about 6 months old, I didn't even realize they were divorced because we spent so much time with him and around him, and he was always coming over, you know, and bringing groceries and money. And, you know, I know we lived in 2 different homes, but I didn't know that they were not together anymore.
It was about that time Maurice began pursuing another lifelong passion.
He was very interested in boxing. He had a lot of bouts all over London, Birmingham, Ipswich. He was all over the place boxing. He started junior, then graduated to heavyweight, and he enjoyed it because he used to win. You know, nobody could take him down. You know, he was strong. He was a heavyweight. He was way up there.
His career took him all over the world.
He went to Germany, he boxed in Russia, all of Western Europe, basically. 6 years of continuous fighting. That's a long time, yeah. Especially heavyweight boxers, because you're going against the roughest of the toughest when you're in the heavyweight category.
The highlight of his career came at Wembley Stadium. The main event involved a fighter named Cassius Clay versus Henry Cooper. Maurice was fighting 3 undercard bouts that night and won all of them.
He was coming out of the ring, and Muhammad Ali said to him, or Cassius Clay at that time, he was still carrying the name Cassius Clay, "If you keep fighting like that, young man, you're going to meet me in the ring one day."
An injury ended Roy's boxing career in 1967, but it didn't slow him down. He also owned a few garages where he could rebuild and repair any car. In 1977, the 3 Roy girls immigrated to the United States with their mom. Leaving was devastating.
I wanted to stay with my dad, and my mom was like, "Nope, you're coming to America," and I cried. I cried for like 2 years straight.
By that time, Maurice had remarried. His new wife gave him 4 more children: Maurice Jr., Oliver, Natasha, and Al.
I've always had that connection with him, that bond with him. I was actually named after him, you know, where he wanted to have a son for so many years. When he managed to actually have a son of his own, it was only fitting to be named after him.
You know, he gave me his boxing name, which was Al. It was something that obviously that I was proud of, you know, a name that meant so much to him. And that's something that I hold close to me and close to my heart.
You know, he really did make a significant impact on our lives and the way that we handle ourselves and the way that we conduct ourselves.
It was a gift. What he could do was, for any time he spent with you as a one-to-one, he could make you feel special. He could make you feel like you was the most important person in the world.
I always knew that he loved me, so that was the main thing. He loved his children. He loved all of us. You know, he was a passionate person. He was a person that, you know, would have loved to see his grandchildren over, you know, in the UK.
In 1989, Maurice left London and moved to the United States. This reunited him with his sisters and daughters.
It was wonderful for us to be together again. We would talk about old times when we were growing up. Do you remember when we used to do this? Do you remember when we used to do that? It was like having my brother back again.
Well, of course, I was overjoyed. You know, we had all these plans. You know, we're going to open up a body shop and we're going to do this business and that business, because he's a businessman. He loves business. And then the war broke out.
When Carol was called up to serve in Operation Desert Storm, Maurice stepped in to watch and raise his granddaughter.
Here's a photo of Roy and Oakland Mayor Gene Kwan taken inside of his granddaughter's uptown shoe store, Shoe Groupie.
You know, he was very active in my business. He helped me a lot. Still in shock because my grandfather was somebody who I spoke to every single day. He was like the only real father figure I had in my life. He was my father.
It was here in the Bay Area that he taught his great-nephew how to give back to the community.
He just personally just went out to individuals and just reached them without the help of any organization.
By all accounts, he was someone to turn to and count on.
He was always helping people, you know, whether it was fixing cars. He flew to St. Louis and helped me when I got my kitchen. He was there to help me put my kitchen back together. He did landscaping for me. He did landscaping for my sister Carol. He always wanted to help others.
He's that kind of guy. He's a protector. He was watching over the neighborhood, and people felt safe because my father was there.
He showed his love by making sure that he would keep in contact with us, keep giving us good advice, spending time with us individually.
If he have money, he will give it to, as I said, whosoever needs money. If you need a helping hand, he will come and help you, not looking for anything in exchange.
In his later years, Maurice was still fixing cars, most of the time for free.
I honestly couldn't find a better friend than Maurice, and a kinder man than Maurice Roy.
And nothing meant more to Maurice Roy than his family.
I don't think there was ever a holiday where he wasn't there. He was at everything. He didn't want to miss out on anything. And so, you know, whatever was going on, he was always there.
My dad was the glue for the family. He was the reason to mostly having all the family functions, so everybody could get together, because my dad was big on not leaving nobody out. He wants everybody to be there.
He did his best to stay close to the children. Phone calls were constant.
He was probably on the phone all day, every day, because he sounds like he was just talking to everyone all the time.
He instilled in all his kids a desire to do their best and achieve excellence, something they have taken to heart.
Just give it 110%, you know. So I've always had that outlook, and I always try and install that.
He had a very, very strong work ethic, and he instilled in us from a very young age that if you want something, you work really hard for it and you'll get it. I'm actually a lawyer, and it's a very, very competitive career, and so you have to be very, very persistent and tenacious, and it's just having that mindset, I think, got from my dad.
You know, wanting to be my own boss comes from the fact that he was his own boss when he was in this country.
You need to understand that when you get older, you've got to work hard for whatever you want to achieve in life, you know. Hard work pays, you know. That hard work ethic has always been installed in us, in all four of our siblings, from a young age.
You grow up seeing positive things, and it's not about what they say, it's what you see. So that's how my daughter became driven, that's how I became driven. You know, I have 2 master's degrees and I'm working on my doctorate, and that's just how we grew up.
His violent death, so sudden, so unexpected, has left a gaping hole in this family.
Being in the medical profession, I'm accustomed to death, but to have the youngest one of our family to just die like that, because he was so vibrant and so strong, to just die so suddenly, it really took a toll. I still think about him, and whenever I think about him, because we were so close, tears come to my eyes. I can't help it, and I know he was gonna die sometime, but not that soon, or not the way he did.
Just to kill my dad, you just killed me. You know what I'm saying? Oh, just, if it wasn't for my son, my grandson, I don't know. It's been a fight in myself to be strong for everyone else, my family. He loved his family, he loved his grandchildren, he loved his children, his great-grandchildren. My dad is a unique person. There isn't a daughter alive who has a dad, a real dad, that they would feel the way I feel.
To the driver of the truck that December day, Maurice Roy was just a guy he failed to notice. To the first responders, he was a victim they were trying to save. But to the Roy family, Maurice was a fighter and a lover, a friend, a brother, a father, a grandfather, and to all of them, a champion.
The Insider exclusive Justice in America news team is on location in Berkeley, California to take you behind the scenes in this new network TV special, Justice in America, Maurice Roy's story. With Joseph Tomasic, law offices of Joseph E. Tomasic, who successfully represented Maurice's family in this case. Joseph has earned a reputation as an unyielding trial lawyer who repeatedly represents clients against big companies and the Goliaths of the world, and repeatedly wins. He has built a substantial reputation nationwide by consistently winning cases other law firms have turned down, and his amazing courtroom skills and headline-grabbing success rate continue to provide his clients with the results they need and the results they deserve. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Berkeley, California. It is my great pleasure to introduce Joe Tomasic to the show. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Steve.
Let's talk about your firm. What does your firm specialize in?
I've been a solo practitioner for over 30 years, and I specialize primarily in personal injury, mainly auto collisions, but also premises liability, insurance bad faith, and also I now have a crossover case involving injury and disability access rights, ADA, that type of thing.
So basically you represented the little guy in all these cases, right?
Absolutely.
Against the major corporations. But you originally, when you came into the legal industry after you graduated law school, you went to work for an insurance company so you could see how they work, right?
Absolutely. Well, I actually work for a law firm that represented insurance companies. So about 5-6 years of doing insurance defense and got to know the ropes and know how they operate. And I felt in my heart that I really enjoyed and felt more fulfilled by representing the little guy or gal. And I switched over to the plaintiff side.
Yeah, it is very useful to know both sides of the mentality of both sides there. My question is, what did you see on the defense side that you didn't particularly like?
So when I was doing insurance defense for insurance companies, I just wasn't very happy with how they treated people. Obviously, you can't be expected to give away the store, but they just weren't very reasonable. A lot of times they wanted documents shredded that shouldn't have been shredded, and I refused to do it. And I just didn't feel comfortable with how they took care of people and how they cared about people.
Tell our audience a little bit about this case, Maurice Roy's case, and you represented the family. He had, 6 or 7 kids? Is that correct?
Yeah, 7 kids. Yeah, 4 in England and 3 in the United States.
Tell our audience a little bit about it. What kind of guy was he?
From what I heard from the siblings, my clients, he was a wonderful father, grandfather, great-grandfather. Was born in Jamaica and became a boxer and had a great career as a boxer. Went to London, actually boxed in Wembley Stadium on the same card as Muhammad Ali, who was Cassius Clay at the time. And then he had an eye injury and had to retire, but became an auto mechanic and was just great to all his kids and grandkids, had great relations with them, and a wonderful, loving father, grandfather, great-grandfather.
So how did this case become a case?
So what happened was that Mr. Roy was going to the store to buy some Christmas lights in mid-December, and he was walking in a crosswalk at a fairly busy intersection with gas stations around, and a FedEx truck made a left-hand turn through the crosswalk and struck him and ran him over and killed him. And the emergency personnel, this horrible, tragic situation, tried to rescue him, but he was actually run over by the truck and died at the scene.
And we're going to be talking about the legal issue here because in the beginning of the show, we talk a little bit about this. The truck had the words on a budget, and it was a contractor to Federal Express. And you know, in a minute, you can talk a little bit about the liability there. And interestingly enough, when the driver hit Maurice, he tried to take off, but Maurice was a big guy, and the truck wouldn't go, so he had to stop, basically, right?
Yeah, some observers thought that he might have been trying getting away, but Mr. Roy was basically entangled in the back wheel.
Now, the interesting thing about, and what I admire about this case is you were able to discover that Maurice had entered the intersection on a green light. He had all the laws protecting him, correct? And how could you prove that? How did you prove that?
So it's interesting. What happened was that the clients had another attorney representing them, the daughters originally, and after about a week, he said, "I'm going vacation for Christmas holidays. I'll be back in a few weeks." And they were very disappointed that things weren't happening with the case. And they actually had run into a previous client of mine who I had represented, and they had a multiple seven-figure settlement with the city of Oakland. And they heard the daughters complaining about their lawyers in action, and my former client said, "I trust two people, God and Joe Tomasic. I don't have God's phone number, but here's Joe Tomasic's phone number. You got to call him." And they called me and they said, "Well, we're kind of skeptical of lawyers, but we heard a lot of great things about you. We're thinking of maybe changing lawyers." So before I even had the case, the next, it was there wasn't enough time to find a private investigator. So the next day, in the pouring rain, I went out and I canvassed the area just trying to find video, because a lot of times these surveillance videos get erased over after a week, and it's been about a week. And I was very worried that crucial evidence would be lost. We didn't have the police report at that time. A lot of times the police report will take several weeks, especially when involving a fatality. So we didn't know that the police report was actually going to be against Mr. Roy and find him to be at fault. So I initially was not given, FedEx couldn't find any video. The police couldn't find any video. I went to a gas station and said, "I need to get your surveillance video." And they said, "It only shows the gas pumps. So even if we had it, we're not going to give it to you because it's not worth anything." I said, "I need to see the video." So eventually I obtained the video. And at that point, the clients were very happy that I was able to obtain the video, and they retained me. And we saw it, and we saw Mr. Roy walking to the intersection, push the walk signal for the walk signal, wait, and then we saw another vehicle parallel to Mr. Roy go into the intersection. So the police report concluded that Mr. Roy ran into the intersection. It was his fault. Well, this video, which the gas station didn't think showed the collision, and it didn't show the collision, but showed him slowly walking into the street. So that was very helpful to us.
Now, let's talk about your witness.
So in addition to the surveillance video showing Mr. Roy pushing the walk button and waiting for the light to change, it also showed a woman who the police never talked to, who was at the gas pumps, and you could tell her visibly just horrified, just seeing the collision happen and shrieking and screaming. And we initially weren't able to see her license plate, but we were able to enhance it, a little CSI, and we got her license plate. We were able to contact her through DMV records, and she said, "I always felt so bad that the police never talked to me about this, and I felt frightened, and they didn't want to talk to me, and I'm really glad that you found me, because I believe that it was completely the FedEx driver's fault. Mr. Roy walked in the intersection, and this truck made the sudden turn, and Mr. Roy had no defense. And in addition, Mr. Roy was being pushed by the front of the truck while he was still standing down the street farther and farther.
Because the truck driver was trying to get away.
Could have been. Very likely could have been.
So she was the key to the case, wasn't she?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But even then, FedEx still would admit liability. So they forced us to go to trial.
Why wouldn't they accept responsibility? Because as you proved in the case, this was a contract driver, right?
Right. There was a dispute that initially FedEx was denying that they were at fault for, that they were an employee of this driver, because these were extra drivers hired for the holidays through a subcontractor. But under California law, we show that FedEx had enough control. He had a FedEx uniform, he had a FedEx walkie-talkie, FedEx GPS. We were able to show that FedEx had enough involvement that he very likely would be deemed an employee.
So you were set for trial, you went to trial. What happened in the case?
So we went to trial. I thought that opening statement went exceptionally well, as evidenced by the numerous interruptions by defense counsel. And what happened after that is confidential. I'm not permitted to talk about what happened. about whether or not there was a settlement. But in my mind, we effectively demonstrate to FedEx that their driver was completely at fault for the collision.
Lessons to be learned in this case. Let's talk about police reports. San Leandro police report. It was inaccurate. It was wrong.
Absolutely.
Just because you see a police report that's against you doesn't mean it's accurate, right?
Right. I hope our viewers realize that. And a lot of people might give up. A lot of lawyers give up. I've had cases come to me where the lawyers have given up because the police report was against the plaintiff. And obviously, you have to look at the facts and go into detail. And in the cases I've taken where the police report was against us, I believed that we could prevail, and we have. But yeah, that's an important lesson for viewers. Don't always give up. Don't ever give up if the police report is against you. At least look into it further.
What I like about this case is it reminds me a little bit about Perry Mason. Perry Mason went out and did his own investigations too, right? I mean, good attorneys do that. I mean, you're a sole practitioner, right? Had you not done that, you wouldn't have found that witness, correct?
The video and the witness, absolutely. Crucial. And the police never talked to her. I don't know why.
When these kinds of cases happen, for example, why did you decide to take on this case when you had a police report that wasn't on your side?
Actually, when I took the case on, we didn't have the police report. So, but I had a feeling that there might be some issues. But I knew from previous cases where I took cases and turned them around where police report was against us. I believe that knowing Mr. Roy and being a grandfather and elderly, that he would not run to the street. That in California, there's the law protects the pedestrian. There's a higher standard for the motorist than there is for a pedestrian, and he was in the crosswalk. So I thought there was a good chance that there's at least significant liability on the FedEx driver, if not complete liability. And I was just really touched by the daughters, how much they loved their father, and how much they believe that he wouldn't run in front of a truck.
Yeah, another interesting point I found about this case is when they have contract truck drivers, okay, with, budget truck, it said budget on the truck, right. But when they have contract, not employees, but let's say independent contractors, or they think they're independent, they are also liable too. I mean, they're working in the employment of the contractor, correct? And I think that's a very important point to make here because, corporations will deny any responsibility as you see them do because they don't have their name on the truck. That person wasn't on their payroll or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
That's an important point you got to cross.
Under California law and most states' law, there's a doctrine called respondeat superior. It's a Latin term for employer-employee relationship. And the law does get fairly complicated. There's been a lot of litigation in Uber and Lyft, whether they're employees or not. But a lot of companies don't want to be liable for acts of people who work on their behalf and claim they're independent contractors and try to deny the corporate liability for the individual driver's fault.
Right. For the record, in the state of California, Uber, ride-share companies, are they responsible for the actions of their contractors? Are they employees, the drivers?
It's complicated, and it's getting, there's judicial decisions and appellate decisions that change that, and I know there was litigation as far as that goes.
Right, because you're working in the employment of somebody else, right? And I would suspect that in California, it's pretty difficult to maintain that they're independent contractors and their corporate contractors are not responsible, right?
Yeah, the companies are always constantly trying to either through litigation or through legislation try to change, to try to make sure that their drivers are not employees.
You have been a lawyer for over 30 years. You've handled lots of cases, interesting cases. What was it about this case that interested you?
The clients and his life. I mean, the fact that, after the case, the clients gave me this boxing glove. He's a Jamaican boxer. And I just, really believe in that family is an important thing. I just realized how close they were to, one of the daughters called him several times a week. And I actually went around and talked to people and said, how often do people talk to their parents? And it wasn't as much, most people didn't talk to their parents as much as my clients did. And I could just tell there was such a great family bond and love for him. And it was such a loss. And it would be such a loss for the rest of their lives to lose the light and inspiration and love of their father. So I'm a big believer in family. And I'm also a big believer in the little guy or gal against corporations, that they need their day in court and they need to be represented adequately.
And thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Steve. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.